Hey, my name is Barry J. Neely, and I'm a composer and sound engineer, and today I wanted to take you through recreating Elvis's blue suede shoes. This was for a short film called Graceland about a girl who believes she's the reincarnation of Elvis. So to start, let me play you my version.
But I'm on holiday off of my shoes, and don't you step on my blue suede shoes. You can do anything but steady over my blue suede shoes. Let's go!
We didn't have the rights to the recording, but we did get the rights to the song. So that meant we had to completely recreate the entire thing. Here's the kicker. I can't actually play you the original version of Blue Suede Shoes. You're gonna have to find that on your own, because if I play it in this video, it's gonna get flagged and maybe taken down on all social media platforms, and I just don't want that. So you're gonna listen to my version and my version only, and just have to trust that I was constantly comparing my version with the original, my version with the original. Now, the ultimate compliment would be if this video gets flagged anyway and taken down because my version sounded so close to the original. Okay. Step 1 to recreating a song. Get the musicians that know that genre. That's gonna be 75% of your work right there. So for this version, I got Laura Palmer, who's rockabilly queen, up for upright bass, her guitar player Max Jukes, Lance Lipinski, who does a lot of Elvis stuff, and the drummer that I always use, Adam Hansen, because you can kind of play anything. Here's the thing. I don't have a lot of outboard gear. In order to really recreate Elvis's sound, of course, you'd need the original gear. So I'm only using plugins. I'm not using anything that crazy. Let me take you into it. Everything has been deactivated, and I'm gonna play you Lance's vocals.
Well, it's a 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready. Now go, cat, go, but don't you step on my blue suede shoes.
Now, with his voice already pretty similar, and him being the expert on this, we're already like 75, 85% there. So what did I do to it? One band EQ was to just get rid of the low end right away. A de-esser to curb that high end of his vocals, the sibilants. Renaissance compressor, not necessarily a sound thing, just to keep the dynamics in check. Now I'm getting into the cusp of it, where I purposely even took off more low end and took off more high end, because again, it's not gonna be crisp highs. Here's it so far.
Well, it's a 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready. Now go, cat, go, but don't you.
Here's it without.
Well, it's a 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready. Now go, cat, go, but don't you.
So the first 4 plugins kind of tackle the high end and make it less crisp. What do the other 3 plugins do? I get a little bit more into it, where the only distressor I had, and the distressor kind of adds distortion without adding distortion, and that's what I used it for, and the only one that I had was Isotope Alloy. And 1176 just to give it more of a sound. Finally, not the thing that engineers are supposed to do. We're supposed to put the reverbs on aux tracks, but I didn't have too much time to do this, so I kind of went quickly and added a little plate just at the end, only at 11%, just to give it some room. So now here's everything without the plugins once again.
Well, it's a 1 for the money, 2 for the show.
And here is it with all the plugins that I used.
Well, it's a 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready. Now go, cat, go, but don't you.
To me, it sounds a lot warmer, and that was my point. You'll notice that when I do the mastering process within the same session, which again was in the interest of time, I'll bring up the overall crispness of the whole recording, but for right now I need to tackle the vocals individually. So let's move on to the guitar. Max Jukes, who plays on this, is the expert. It's a rockabilly feel. I'm not gonna say Elvis is rockabilly, rockabilly's Elvis, because I got in trouble for that one time. So his tone already was pretty close. Now let's see what I added. I used the SSL channel. I'm sure just to do, it looks like I added a little high end, high mid frequency, took off some bass, 1176, because I assumed not only to curb the dynamics, but also I assumed this might have been something I used on the guitar. H delay to get that, that kind of rockabilly sound. Now let's go to the acoustic guitar. The acoustic on the Elvis recording was way more percussive than anything else. Here's the acoustic without anything. And here's it with what I used. So right away, I actually added high end to this one as well, and I got rid of a lot of the lows up to 200. That's just because that's what I heard in the recordings wasn't a lot of bass on the guitar. And the SSL channel probably was, it looked like I only added a little high shelf, a little bit of mid-range, and the compressor on the SSL was just to curb some of the peaks. Now moving on to the upright bass, played by Laura Palmer. So Laura's the expert. She knows the upright bass better than anyone, especially within the rockabilly world. So I'm going to trust her playing style and her recording. Similar to the acoustic guitar, got rid of the tonality and made it more percussive. And again, I don't think there was much low end, but here's the original. So a lot of bass, a lot of tone to it, and I used the Puig. That adds a lot of bassiness to it, and then I used the C4 to curb that bass. So I guess on those plugins, I added bass with the Puig. I took away or curbed the bass with the C4. And then the limiter was just to kind of harness in those super peaks, because she's doing a lot of slapping on it, and that just, I don't want those to spike too much. And the Trans X, I guess, was to also curb those. Now moving on to the drums. Now in this instance, the drums were, were kind of not flat, but when they recorded raw, they didn't have too much high end. So I'm going to see what I did with those. Added high end. Limiter to harness in those peaks. Got rid of some low end on the snare. Oh, also on the snare, the L1 was designed to limit those peaks so that the snares of the snare came through a lot more. Nothing crazy there, just a little bit of compression on the overheads. And then finally, the aux track, which I actually use an aux track for this one, for the plate reverb. And I use the IK Multimedia reverbs because they're very simple and they just sound good. Now for the overall drum sound, I looks like I super raised the very, very high end. Here is it without plugins. Here are the drums with all the plugins. So a lot of the plugins I was using were to just bring out, I guess, the presence of the drums, despite the fact that I mentioned at the beginning of this that I was harnessing in the high end, and that was just the choice that I made at the time. Now let's go over the master track. And the master EQing was definitely the time where I was comparing the old version of Elvis with my version. And because I needed to constantly compare my version with the old version, I just had to have the mastering process within the session. Here's the song without any master EQing.
Well, it's a 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready. Now go, cat, go, but don't you.
So there's a lot more tonality, meaning you can hear the notes of the bass, and I knew that I was going to have to kind of strip that away with the mastering, but I didn't want to strip that away on the track itself. Now here's all the plugins engaged.
But a holiday off of my shoes, and don't you step on my blue suede shoes.
So right away, it sounds a lot more present and a lot more percussive. Overall, it's sounding a lot more old school, which is the goal, and again, what I was comparing it to when I was comparing the original recording. So let's quickly go over the plugins that I used for that. I have a standard set of plugins that I use for any mastering, because it's like a quick master, especially if I'm sending up tracks to a director or something, and it's the C4. I kind of have this overall preset. It's the Scheps 73 with this mix, widen, and focus. Now that's a little ironic because the entire recording that I did was in mono, and that was the point because I wanted to match the mono original recording. So I guess I just kind of left that on. So already with the EQs, I'm starting to shape the high end. And the second IQ right after that, because what you do is you kind of make one adjustment and you say, okay, that's where I want it. And then you want to make another adjustment to the EQ, but you don't want to affect your original graphic shape. And so you add on another plugin. So I'm not saying you need 10 plugins to match a sound, but that's just kind of how the workflow seemed to go with this session. Because I've got high end raised here overall, killing the low end. I've got additional high end here. And I get the Kramer tape, almost gives it a more glued together sound. And since I'm sure the Elvis tune was recorded on tape, I'm just going to try to match that virtually. Puig, looks like I raised more of the high end and also raised a little bit of the low end. And then with the MEQ5, I raised, and yeah, I guess I just raised a lot of the high end. And then the final one, I just used Pro Tools stock EQ, and it looks like I shaped the upper mid-range. And here it is again from this spot without any of the mastering plugins.
But I'm on holiday off of my shoes, and don't you step on my blue suede shoes.
Now here it is with all the mastering plugins that I used.
But I'm on holiday off of my shoes, and don't you step on my blue suede shoes. You can do anything but steady over my blue suede shoes.
It certainly brings out the vocals, but it brings out the distressor that I used, which again adds a little of like distortion without distortion, is what I say. That's just kind of how I made it sound, and that's how I was able to work with it within the budget, and I think I came pretty close to making it sound pretty darn close. You'll have to find out for yourself and listen to it on another way, because again, don't want to get flagged. You don't need a ton of plugins and you don't need a ton of outboard gear to get something pretty close. You're probably going to be working within budgets, especially on a short film, so you don't really have many choices. But the key to all of this was to get the players that were the experts. That's always going to be my advice. And hopefully this gives you some insight into making a new song sound like an old song. I'm at Barry J. Neely on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And you can always reach out to me with questions, and I'll see you next time.
You can do anything but steady over my blue suede shoes. Let's go, Cap! Oh, I walk the dog.